If you watched the last series, I painted up some 3D resin printed Tallylyn goods vans by Small Loco Works, but painted them to look heavily used. So this week I'll be stripping one back to repaint it in its Heritage Collection condition. Nice. Hi guys. So I was really happy with these vans, but they didn't run on corrris and wouldn't really fit in on Llangwernal in this condition. So the best thing to do is to strip it down and start again. It's a shame, but it needs to be done. The first thing to do is to remove anything that doesn't need painting. Since the body is a resin print, the only things left are the wheel sets and couplings. But since I took these off during the corris exhibition to use on another wagon, it's just the wheel sets for now. Stripping down resin or plastic models is always a hot topic. My solution is Dettol. I drop the van into a vessel, usually an old rattle can lid, and fill it up with the Dettol liquid, until it's completely covering the model. I tend to leave it sit in it for about 10 minutes. Then return to aggravate it. You'll find that it's made a good start removing the previous coats of paint. I use an older paintbrush to scrub the model to help it along a bit. You can see how effective this technique is. That's not all, and this may be one of the most important things to remember. You can't just call it a day there, as any paint still left on the model will harden and turn into a rubbery mess. And washing it in water at this point will amplify that. So take the model out of the dirty Dettol mix and start giving it another scrub, but this time with fresh Dettol. You should see that this is coming off pretty clear at this point. With the Dettol looking good, it's time to go to the final stage, which is repeating the previous step, but with fresh water instead of Dettol. And this is just to remove the Dettol from the last stage. And you can now relax and leave the model to dry off. We're back on track now with a nice clean model, and I can attach a classic cotton bud to the van. The model now gets a good undercoat in the form of grey car primer. I know some people use grey car primer as a top colour for TR grey, but personally I don't think it looks that close. So the top coat is the same mix of grey-purple that I mixed up in the slate wagon video. The purple warms up the grey a bit, it looks much closer. On close inspection of the goods van, the metalwork on the corners is a different shade of grey to the woodwork. So to model this, I'm masking off the corners. Out of interest, the sizes of masking tape I commonly use, and you'll see in these videos, are 6mm and 18mm. The 6mm is used where more finesse is needed along the edges, whereas the 18mm is used to fill up space. The finished job looks like a faff, but it's well worth it. The grey for this was Miniature Paints Mid-Grey, which is a lot colder, and ironically looks a lot like grey car primer. With the masking off, the colour difference is extremely subtle, so I think I'll take another look at that in a bit. The roof of the van is also a different shade of grey, so I'll mask that off as well. I started by trying to make a nice fancy job of masking the rim of the roof on the two ends, but my very real lack of time for modelling these days pushed me to just mask it off completely. In reality, you can't really see a difference, so I probably could have got by with not telling you. The roof is actually going to be grey car primer, and this time it will be the top coat, which gives a really nice contrast to the body. I think that's all the grey done for now, so I'll turn my attention to the black ironwork. I have used grey primer for this, obviously hand brushing, not aerosol, that would be mental. But I have gone back to just using the classic black school poster paint that made up the black wash in the previous series. This is a really nice matte finish, and suits black metalwork. One thing that I do find looks quite bad on models, in particular Tallylyn slate wagons, is a very shiny black being used to paint the metalwork. I'm sorry if this is you, but it's absolutely okay if you're happy with the finish, but for me personally, I will spray them with a matte varnish to tone it down a peg or two. The metalwork also needs to be painted in on a roof. I've explained my method before, but in case you're new and haven't yet binge watched my entire archive of videos, when I paint in small raised details such as these, I paint each edge separately. With the paintbrush almost parallel to the details, I paint on the far edge. This way the paintbrush tip doesn't rub down the edge of the raised sections. So that's most of the van's details painted in, including the end strips, the axle boxes, and finally the dumb buffer brackets. In this scale, these are really tricky to paint in, so I tend to just paint them up and then clean the buffer faces with a bit of water on a cotton bud. I did forget to record this, but one detail that I've added to the van this time around was the brake lever on the rear. This was just a spare one that came with the slate wagons, as not all of them had brakes fitted. The whole model then gets a coat of varnish in preparation for weathering. Obviously this van is very similar to the slate wagons, in that the TR museum stock doesn't get very dirty, and a lot has been recently repainted. But the models look better with a bit of weathering added, and I see it a bit like theatre makeup. Okay, confession time. This went really badly off camera. The varnish wasn't tough enough, so when I used the IPA to manipulate the black wash, it stripped away the grey paintwork below. And this happened twice. So the van on screen is actually the third go at this. Yes, I completely stripped down and repainted this van 3 times. I am not a god. But you will see here that version 3 has received more distinct grey metal corners, and it does look much better for it. When it's all dried up, I pick out the rivets with light antique white. If they come out too bright, like on the end of the van here, I'll go over them later with a weak black wash to tone them down. I'm really starting to feel that if I'm in doubt of anything, I'll just add a black wash to it. There is a lot of fiddly detail to pick out on the front of this van, which takes time, but boy it looks good. So I guess that's about it, since I still don't have my number transfers, nor have I decided on couplings. So for now, I'll just pop the wheel sets back in and be done with it. And there we go, one modern day goods van for Nank Wernal. For some reason, I have a place in my heart for this prototype. There's something about seeing it running in a train with the slate and open wagons that really gives a narrow gauge look. It wasn't an easy one to do like I'd expected due to the thinner issue, but I've learnt a lot from that, and hopefully won't hit that issue again. I'm glad that I made the effort to paint the different shades of grey on the body, and it's a really nice detail that's commonly missed. Really need to get those transfers sorted though. Hey, watch these videos. Cheers.